أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and jazakumullah khair for joining us for day 4 of Little Ramadan Reminders. Today we will be discussing the topic of ibadah, and it is the entire basis, it is the entire relationship between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is the entire purpose of existence. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah says that He did not create the jinn and mankind except to worship Him. And Allah Azza wa Jalla says in Surah Al-Fatiha, which we recite 17 or more times a day, and He tells us to say, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. It is you who we worship, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ, and وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, and it is you who we turn to for help. And Allah Azza wa Jalla orders us, Ya ayyuhan nas. So He says, O people, not just Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe. Ya ayyuhan nas i'budu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum. Worship your Lord who created you. So the word ibadah is used throughout the Quran as the entire foundation of the relationship between creation and their creator. It is ibadah. And therefore it's very important, it's vital, it is essentially the most central, the most important thing to understand, almost in the entirety of Islam, understanding what ibadah truly is and understanding how we can fulfill our purpose of existence. As I mentioned already, where Allah Azza wa Jalla says that He did not create us except to worship Him. And therefore our entire purpose revolves around this, and it's very important to understand exactly what it means. Linguistically, the word ibadah, it actually means to lower yourself and to submit to something. It is said that if there's a path that is mu'abbad, it means that the road has become lowered, or as in there's depression in the ground due to lots of walking. So mu'abbad means it's been lowered. So ibadah actually means to lower yourself and humble yourself and to submit yourself to something. And so when you look at the word abd in the Arabic language, it actually is translated as slave, where if a person is an owned slave, then he will be somebody who is essentially under the authority of a master, of a sayyid. And so there's a difference between an abd and a sayyid. And so this is the meaning of the word abd. And when we look at the relationship between an abd, or a slave, and a sayyid and a master, we can see that the slave, one of the primary characteristics of being a slave is that you don't have control over your decision making during your day. You don't choose what time you wake up, you don't choose what you do during the day, you don't choose what time you go to sleep. Rather, the master, although it's a I guess you can say it's a politically incorrect example these days, but this is the nature of how slavery was. When somebody was a slave, essentially they are told when to wake up, they're told what to do first, they're told to clean this and to cook this and prepare this and go do that and so on and so forth. Of course, the master decides this. And a slave, a valuable slave, is considered a valuable slave if they're very obedient and they do the work really well. And the disobedient one, the ones that were worthless in the market, I guess back in those days, they were the ones who essentially were disobedient or didn't work very hard and so on. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلَ الْأَعْلَى, and for Allah is the highest example. Allah Azza wa Jalla describes us as His slaves. And when you look at the nature of this relationship, what is so interesting about it is that He created us to tell us what to do in this world. And if we obey Him, then we are valuable to Him. And if we disobey Him, then we are worthless to Him. And the reward for being valuable to Allah Azza wa Jal is to be freed into Jannah, whereas the punishment of those who are disobedient and worthless to Him are to be enslaved in Jahannam. So in terms of the practical application of ibadah in our lives, we understand the conceptual idea of worship of Allah Azza wa Jal, submitting ourselves to Him, lowering ourselves before Him as we do in sujood. So we know that this is our relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. We submit ourselves to Him. This is conceptually, but what about the practical aspect? What do we do in on a daily basis to make ourselves into ibad? A very powerful example of the definition of what ibadah is in a practical sense is when Adi ibn Hatim radiallahu anhu came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He was wearing a gold cross, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told him, cast away or throw this idol away. He saw the cross and he told him to throw it away. So Adi took it off and he put it away. And so Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned the ayah, اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله. So they took the ayah, he said, they took their rabbis and their monks as gods in the place of Allah. So Adi said, Ya Rasulullah, we never worshipped them. And he said that, did they not make the halal into haram and the haram into halal, and people obeyed them? That was them worshipping. ذَلِكَ عِبَادَتُهُمْ إِيَّاهُمْ. That is them worshipping them. And therefore, the meaning of ibadah is to take instructions. as we said, with a slave and a master, as our relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal is He gives us commands and prohibitions. أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول. Obey Allah and obey the Prophet. This is the basis of our belief. And therefore, the entire relationship of a believer with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is following the commands and staying away from the prohibitions, exerting one's effort to do the additional actions of the mustahab and to avoid the makruhat and to essentially use the halal, which however Allah Azza wa Jal has allowed. And that is the meaning of ibadah in a practical sense, where a person lives his life focusing on obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala owns this world, and we are here to be tested whether or not we're going to obey Him, whether or not we're going to be true ibad, true slaves to Him, or are we going to try to become masters in a place where He is the only master? And this is how ibadah becomes lowering oneself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and submitting. And we know the ayah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِي مَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُمْ ثُمَّ لَا يَجِدُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَرَجًا مَّمَّا قَضَيْتَ وَيُسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. But know by your Lord, they do not truly believe, or they don't believe, unless they refer to you in all of their affairs. So meaning that they refer to the Quran and Sunnah for the halal and the haram. They look for the instructions of Allah Azza wa Jal, as we mentioned previously, which is taqwa. And then they find no resistance in their heart. They submit fully. They find no resistance in their heart for what you have judged, and they give in with full submission. And that's where the word submission comes in. We lower ourselves and we submit ourselves to the commands and prohibitions of Allah Azza wa Jal, both in action and in emotion. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders us something, we are happy. We should be pleased with what He has judged. That is the very best form of submission and lowering oneself to the Creator of the universe. He designed everything around us. He deserves worship. He deserves ibadah. And from this, when we combine the reminder from day 2 and the reminder from day 3, we can understand that the meaning of ibadah, the true meaning of ibadah, is to have taqwa, which is to prepare oneself to the best of one's ability as a true abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by looking at the ahkam of Allah Azza wa Jal and following them exactly without exception, and putting our trust in Allah Azza wa Jal, knowing that He controls everything. He controls all the laws of physics, He controls all of the unseen, He controls all of the events, all the potential accidents, everything in this world, the qada. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala controls all these things, and we trust in Him and we love the fact that He controls all things, and that is tawakkul. When you combine taqwa and tawakkul, you have an abd. You have somebody who is a true slave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, somebody who looks to Allah Azza wa Jal for all of his problems, who asks Allah Azza wa Jal for solutions to any problem that he faces. And he does not go outside the confines of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from amongst ibadihi al-muttaqun and from ibadihi al-mutawakkilun, from His slaves who have taqwa, who obey Him, and from His slaves who are mutawakkilun, who put our trust in Him and do not fear anything. La nakhaf lawmata la'im. We do not fear anything or anyone except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jazakumullah khair for joining us for day 4, and inshallah we'll see you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.